Just by changing one small step in the cooking process, this familiar tofu dish can become incredibly rich, fragrant, and so delicious that one bite will stay in your memory. No fancy ingredients, no complicated techniques, yet the result is surprisingly tasty, perfect with rice, or even as a great drinking dish. Let's get started. First, choose 2 pieces of fresh soft tofu. This is the key to achieving that silky, melt-in-your-mouth texture. If you use firm tofu, the result will feel rough and won't have that smooth, lightly creamy consistency. Now, cut the tofu in half or into thirds across the width. Then slice it into strips about 1 centimeter thick. After that, cut into evenly sized small cubes. This size helps the tofu cook evenly, absorb flavor better, and still look visually appealing. But here comes the game-changing step that many people overlook, and also the reason why your tofu never tasted quite right before. Soaking tofu in hot salted water. Add 1 teaspoon of salt into a bowl. Then pour hot water over the tofu until fully submerged, and gently stir to dissolve the salt. Let it soak for about 2 to 3 minutes. It sounds simple, but the effect is surprisingly powerful. The hot water helps eliminate the raw beanie smell, a subtle odor that can make the dish less appealing. The salt lightly firms up the surface, creating a thin outer layer that prevents the tofu from breaking during cooking. At the same time, pre-warming the tofu helps it absorb seasoning faster and more evenly later on. And most importantly, this step makes the final dish look much more appetizing. Just 2 to 3 minutes. But you'll realize something. It's not that you were cooking it wrong before. You were just missing this one small step. Try it once, and you'll notice the difference. The tofu becomes soft but not crumbly, smooth but not mushy, and much more flavorful. And you'll find it hard to go back to your old method. Set the tofu aside for later use. Next, prepare about 50 grams of lean pork. Not a lot, but it's the secret piece that elevates the entire dish. Slice the meat thinly, then finely mince it. The finer you mince, the better the texture. It will blend beautifully with the tofu, creating a natural, savory sweetness that's incredibly satisfying. Don't think of this as just a secondary ingredient. Just a small amount of meat can make a noticeable difference. The dish becomes much richer in flavor, no longer plain or one-dimensional. Each piece of tofu feels like it's coated in a layer of savory, meaty goodness. Every bite delivers a perfect balance of soft, rich, and aromatic. This minced meat is what transforms the dish from something simple into something deeply flavorful. One bite makes you want another. Once minced, transfer it to a plate and set aside, ready to burst with flavor as soon as it hits the pan. Next comes the aromatics. Small in quantity, but they are the key to creating that irresistible fragrance that makes the dish appealing from the moment it hits the heat. Prepare some garlic and crush it with the side of a knife. Then finely mince it. The finer the garlic, the more fragrant it becomes when sautéed, releasing an aroma that instantly stimulates the appetite. Transfer it to a plate. Next, take a piece of ginger, slice it thinly, then cut into strips, and finally mince it. Ginger helps balance the flavor, reduce any slight odor, and adds a warm, comforting touch to the dish. Add the ginger to the plate with the garlic. If you like it spicy, add a few small chilies and slice them into rings. Just a little is enough to elevate the flavor, making the dish richer and more addictive. Add them together with the garlic and ginger. Next is green onion. Chop the white part first. This will create a deep, savory aroma when sautéed. Add it to the same plate with the garlic, ginger, and chili. Chop the remaining green part finely. It will be added at the end to preserve its fresh color and light fragrance. Just a few familiar ingredients, but when combined properly, they create a warm, rich, and aromatic flavor base that transforms the entire dish. Set everything aside in a bowl. Next comes the step that determines the perfectly balanced flavor of the dish, making the sauce. In a bowl, add 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of sugar, 1 tablespoon of light soy sauce, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, 1 tablespoon of oyster sauce for extra depth, 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, and about 100 milliliters of water. Stir well until everything is fully combined. It may sound like just mixing seasonings, but this is actually the soul sauce, the element that helps every piece of tofu absorb flavor evenly, rich from the inside out, with no bland or overly salty spots. And there's also a very practical reason. By preparing the sauce in advance, when you cook, you simply pour it in. Everything flows smoothly, without rushing or confusion. This small preparation step makes your cooking more organized, more delicious, and much more professional. Once mixed, set it aside. Ready to burst with flavor the moment it goes into the pan. Start cooking. This is when the dish truly begins to release its aroma. Place a pan on the stove and add a little cooking oil. When the oil is hot, add the minced meat and stir-fry until it changes color and becomes fragrant. At this moment, the aroma of the meat begins to spread. This is the most important flavor base of the dish. Next, add the garlic, ginger, chili, and the white part of the green onions. Turn the heat to high and stir quickly so the fragrance bursts out right in the pan. Then add 1 tablespoon of spicy bean paste and continue stir-frying over high heat. At this point, a glossy red color begins to appear. This is the sign that the dish is starting to develop its full flavor. Once the oil turns a beautiful red, add the tofu. Gently but quickly stir so the tofu doesn't break, while still absorbing the rich, spicy meat sauce. Cooking it this way allows the tofu to fully embrace the flavor from the very beginning. By this step alone, you'll already see the dish starting to take shape. It's nice to know that we see each other all over the world. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, you can subscribe by clicking the subscribe button. It's great to see your support. Add about 200 milliliters of water. Stir well and bring it to a gentle boil. Cover and cook for about 5 minutes so the tofu can slowly absorb the flavors. After 5 minutes, open the lid. The tofu is now soft, well infused, and noticeably fragrant. Give it another gentle stir. Next, pour in the prepared sauce. Within just a few seconds, you'll see the magic happen. The sauce begins to coat each piece of tofu, turning glossy, slightly thickened, and incredibly appealing. This is the moment when the dish reaches its peak flavor. Continue cooking until the sauce thickens. Then add a little tapioca starch slurry to create a thicker consistency, helping the sauce coat evenly, making it smooth and glossy like in a restaurant. Wow! The aroma at this point is truly irresistible. Where are you watching from? Please leave a comment to let me know. Finally, add the green onions and stir gently for about 20 seconds. Just enough to release their fragrance while keeping their fresh green color. Turn off the heat and transfer to a plate. As soon as the dish is plated, you'll see a glossy layer of sauce coating every piece of tofu. It already looks incredibly appetizing. The aroma rises immediately. The fragrance of stir-fried minced meat combined with the mild heat of chili and the warmth of garlic and ginger, instantly stimulating your appetite even before the first bite. When you take a bite, the tofu is soft and silky without falling apart, richly coated on the outside while still maintaining a light, natural creaminess inside. The minced meat blends into every bite, adding a slight chew and a deep, savory sweetness. The overall flavor is well balanced, not too spicy, not too salty, with a subtle natural sweetness from the tofu and sauce. The more you eat, the more it makes you want another bite of rice. Never greasy, just incredibly easy and satisfying to eat. By the end, you'll feel like you don't need anything fancy. Just a bowl of hot rice with this dish alone is enough to make the meal complete and deeply satisfying. This isn't a complicated dish, but it's exactly the kind of simple food that becomes addictive. Try it just once, and you'll understand why so many people say, after eating it, you'll want to make it again tomorrow. The video ends here. If you have any comments, please leave a comment below. If you find the video interesting, please give me a like. Don't forget to share it with your relatives and friends. Remember to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Goodbye. See you in the next video.